Hawthorne House, an imposing mansion on the outskirts of town, had been vacant for years. Locals avoided it, claiming it was haunted by the ghost of its former owner, Henry Hawthorne. He was said to have gone mad after his wife's untimely death, locking himself away until he too was found dead under mysterious circumstances. One stormy night, a group of friends, Mike, Lisa, and Tom, dared each other to spend the night in the mansion. Armed with flashlights and a Ouija board, they entered the house, the front door creaking ominously behind them. The interior was a decayed grandeur. Cobwebs draped over elegant furniture, portraits staring down with lifeless eyes. They set up their sleeping bags in the grand parlor, the Ouija board placed in the center of the room. At midnight, they began the seance. The planchette moved slowly at first, then more rapidly. "Is anyone here with us?" Lisa asked. The planchette spelled out yes. "Who are you?" Tom asked. "Henry," it responded. The temperature in the room plummeted. Mike felt a cold hand on his shoulder, but when he turned, no one was there. Suddenly, the candles flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness and the dim light of their flashlights. They saw a figure standing at the top of the grand staircase. It was a man in old-fashioned clothing, his eyes hollow and empty. The friends were paralyzed with fear as the figure descended the stairs, each step echoing through the silent house. The figure reached out, pointing at them, and the air was filled with a deafening roar. The walls seemed to close in, and the friends felt an invisible force pushing them toward the basement door, which had mysteriously swung open. The townspeople gathered around Mike, Lisa, and Tom, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. Whispers spread through the crowd as they recounted the harrowing events that had unfolded inside Hawthorne House. Some crossed themselves, others shook their heads in disbelief, but all were grateful for the trio's courage in facing the darkness that had plagued their town for so long. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the mansion, a figure approached from the outskirts of the crowd. It was an elderly woman, her face weathered with age but her eyes bright with recognition. "You've done what no one else dared," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You've broken the curse that has held Hawthorne House captive for generations." She introduced herself as Margaret, the town historian. She explained that Henry Hawthorne's descent into madness had cast a shadow over the town, leading to rumors of hauntings and strange happenings. Families had moved away, businesses had faltered, all because of the fear that surrounded the cursed mansion. "But now," Margaret continued, her voice filled with hope, "now we can reclaim Hawthorne House. It can once again be a place of beauty and peace, a testament to the resilience of our community." Mike, Lisa, and Tom exchanged glances, realizing the weight of their accomplishment. They had not only freed Henry and Eliza Hawthorne's spirits, but also lifted a burden from the shoulders of the town. Over the following weeks, the townspeople came together to restore Hawthorne House to its former glory. They cleaned the cobwebs, repaired the cracked windows, and planted flowers in the neglected garden. With each stroke of paint and each beam repaired, the mansion seemed to regain its vitality. As they worked, Margaret shared stories of Hawthorne House's illustrious past. The grand parties held in the ballroom, the charitable acts of the Hawthorne family, and the love that had once filled its halls. The mansion began to shed its reputation as a place of darkness and instead became a symbol of hope and renewal. On the day of the grand reopening, the townspeople gathered once more outside Hawthorne House. They stood beneath banners that fluttered in the gentle breeze, celebrating the rebirth of their beloved mansion. Mike, Lisa, and Tom stood at the forefront, their faces glowing with pride. The doors of Hawthorne House swung open, revealing a beautifully restored interior that sparkled in the sunlight. The ballroom, once filled with shadows, now echoed with laughter and music. The library, once a place of secrets, now welcomed visitors with open arms. And the basement, once a chamber of horrors, remained sealed and untouched, a reminder of the darkness that had been banished as the townspeople explored Hawthorne House, their hearts filled with joy and gratitude. They knew that the mansion's troubled past would never be forgotten, but now it was a part of their history, a testament to their strength and unity. In the years that followed, Hawthorne House became a beacon of hope for the town. Visitors came from far and wide to admire its beauty and hear the tales of courage that had saved it from darkness. Mike, Lisa, and Tom remained humble heroes, forever grateful for the bond they had forged through their shared ordeal. And as the sun set over Hawthorne House each evening, casting a warm glow over its elegant facade, the spirits of Henry and Eliza Hawthorne were said to watch over the mansion with peace in their hearts, their restless souls finally finding solace in the love and restoration that surrounded them. Despite the newfound peace that settled over Hawthorne House and the town, Mike, Lisa, and Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered beneath the surface. They had freed the spirits of Henry and Eliza Hawthorne, but there were still unanswered questions about the dark forces that had plagued the mansion. 1 year after the grand reopening, a series of strange occurrences began to unfold. Residents reported hearing disembodied voices in the dead of night, and shadows seemed to move of their own accord within the mansion's halls. The once vibrant garden withered inexplicably, despite the townspeople's efforts to maintain it. Mike, Lisa, and Tom met in secret, their minds filled with concern. They feared that their actions had only stirred up dormant energies, unleashing a new wave of supernatural activity. Determined to uncover the truth, they decided to revisit Hawthorne House under the cover of darkness. They arrived at midnight, when the veil between the worlds was thinnest. The mansion loomed before them, silent and foreboding in the moonlight. With flashlights in hand, they cautiously made their way inside, avoiding the creaking floorboards and the cold drafts that whispered through the corridors. They started in the library, where Eliza Hawthorne's journal had revealed the existence of a hidden room beneath the basement. After hours of meticulous searching, they discovered another hidden lever, concealed behind a shelf of dusty old books. The secret door swung open with a groan, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. The air grew colder with each step they took, and a sense of dread settled over them like a heavy shroud. At the bottom of the stairs, they found themselves in a chamber much older and more sinister than they had imagined. The walls were lined with ancient symbols and faded tapestries depicting scenes of occult rituals. In the center of the room stood an altar, covered in dried blood and surrounded by half-burned candles. A feeling of malevolence hung in the air, palpable and suffocating. As they approached the altar, their flashlights flickered and died, plunging them into complete darkness. Whispers echoed around them, taunting and mocking. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on grotesque shapes that seemed to reach out for them in the midst of the chaos. A voice spoke, a voice they recognized as Henry Hawthorne's, but distorted and filled with anger. "You should have left well enough alone," it hissed, sending chills down their spines. But Mike, Lisa, and Tom stood their ground, their resolve unwavering. They recited the incantation from Eliza's journal, hoping to banish the malevolent presence once and for all. The ancient words echoed through the chamber, a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy, and a blinding light filled the room. When it faded, they found themselves alone once more. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. The symbols on the walls had faded, and the altar lay in ruins. As they made their way back upstairs, they knew that Hawthorne House would never be completely free of its troubled past. But they had confronted the darkness head-on, and for now, they had restored a fragile peace to the mansion and the town. The next morning, Hawthorne House stood silent and serene in the light of dawn. The townspeople, unaware of the night's events, went about their daily lives with renewed hope. Mike, Lisa, and Tom shared a silent nod of acknowledgement, knowing that they had faced their fears and emerged stronger for it. But as they walked away from Hawthorne House, a faint whisper carried on the breeze. A whisper that spoke of secrets still hidden within its walls, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to uncover. Despite their efforts to banish the malevolent presence from Hawthorne House, Mike, Lisa, and Tom couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. The whispers of dark secrets persisted, echoing in the corridors of their minds long after they had left the mansion. Weeks passed without incident, but the trio remained vigilant. They continued to research the history of Hawthorne House, delving deeper into its past in search of answers. They visited Margaret, the town historian, more frequently, hoping she could shed light on the mysteries that still eluded them. One rainy afternoon, Margaret invited them to her home. She led them to a small study lined with bookshelves filled with dusty tomes and yellowed manuscripts. In the center of the room sat an old oak desk, cluttered with papers and artifacts. "I've been researching Hawthorne House for decades," Margaret began, her voice tinged with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "There are stories that have been passed down through generations, tales of dark rituals and forbidden knowledge." She handed them a faded journal, its pages brittle with age. "This belonged to a servant who worked at Hawthorne House in the late 1800s, Margaret explained. "His entries speak of strange occurrences, whispers in the night, shadowy figures that moved through the halls." Lisa flipped through the journal, her eyes scanning the meticulous handwriting. The servant, Thomas, had documented his growing unease as he witnessed Henry Hawthorne's descent into madness. He wrote of secret meetings held in the dead of night, where Henry and a group of cloaked figures performed rituals that defied explanation. "The most disturbing entries are toward the end," Margaret continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thomas feared for his life as he uncovered the true purpose of these rituals. A pact made with a powerful entity in exchange for wealth and power." Mike's brow furrowed in concern. "Do you think this entity is still tied to Hawthorne House?" he asked, his voice tense with apprehension. Margaret nodded solemnly. "I believe so," she replied. The darkness that plagued the mansion wasn't just Henry's madness. It was something older, something far more sinister. Determined to confront the lingering evil once and for all, Mike, Lisa, and Tom returned to Hawthorne House that very night. Armed with knowledge from Thomas's journal and the incantations they had learned, they descended once more into the hidden chamber beneath the basement. The air was thick with anticipation as they approached the altar where Henry and his followers had performed their dark rituals. They placed candles in a circle around the altar, arranging them according to the symbols described in the journal. Lisa recited the incantation, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her heart as the last words echoed through the chamber. The candles flickered and went out. A cold wind swept through the room, carrying with it a sense of dread. Shadows gathered in the corners, coalescing into a formless mass that loomed over them like a specter of death. "We know what you seek," a voice whispered, its words echoing in their minds. "But you cannot banish us so easily." Mike, Lisa, and Tom stood their ground, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. They focused their thoughts on Henry and Eliza Hawthorne, on the love that had once filled Hawthorne House before it was tainted by darkness. Slowly, the shadows began to dissipate. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a serene calm. The symbols on the walls faded, and the altar crumbled into dust before their eyes. When they emerged from the chamber, the first rays of dawn were breaking over Hawthorne House. The mansion stood silent and still, its haunted past finally laid to rest. Mike, Lisa, and Tom shared a moment of quiet relief, knowing that they had faced their greatest fears and emerged victorious as they walked away from Hawthorne House. Margaret approached them with a grateful smile. "You've done what no one else could," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You've freed Hawthorne House from its dark legacy." But Mike, Lisa, and Tom knew that their work was not yet done. They had confronted the malevolent entity that had haunted the mansion for generations, but they understood that evil could never truly be destroyed, only kept at bay, and as they looked back at Hawthorne House one last time, a sense of peace settled over them. The mansion stood as a testament to their courage and perseverance, a beacon of hope for the town and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always light to be found. Nestled deep within the dense forests of New England, Blackwood Manor stood as a testament to Gothic architecture and old-world opulence. The mansion, abandoned for decades, was the subject of many local legends. They said it was cursed, a place where darkness thrived. Emily and Jack were an adventurous couple who thrived on exploring the unknown. They decided to spend a weekend in Blackwood Manor, excited by the prospect of experiencing its eerie charm. The caretaker, an old man named Mr. Whitaker, handed them the keys with a solemn warning. "Stay out of the basement," he said, his eyes clouded with memories. "No one who goes down there ever comes back the same." Ignoring his warning, Emily and Jack made their way through the grand entrance, marveling at the intricate woodwork and dusty chandeliers. That night, as the wind howled outside, they heard faint whispers echoing through the halls. Emily dismissed them as the wind's tricks, but Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Curiosity got the better of them the next morning. They decided to explore the basement, a labyrinth of stone corridors and forgotten rooms. The air grew colder with each step they took. At the end of a long hallway, they found a door marked with strange symbols. Inside, the room was filled with old books and ritualistic artifacts. A large mirror dominated the far wall, its surface covered in a thin layer of dust. As they approached, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Emily wiped the dust from the mirror, revealing a scene of a grand banquet hall, identical to the one upstairs. But there was something terribly wrong. The hall was filled with people in period clothing, their faces twisted in agony. At the head of the table sat a figure, its eyes glowing red, staring directly at Emily. She stumbled back, pulling Jack with her. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. The whispers turned into anguished cries, filling the room with an unbearable cacophony. The mirror's surface rippled like water, and the ghostly figure stepped through, its hand reaching out toward them. Ravenwood Estate was infamous for its tragic history. Built in the late 1800s, it had witnessed a series of mysterious deaths, each more gruesome than the last. The last family to live there, the Campbells, vanished without a trace in the early 1900s. Sarah, a writer fascinated by unsolved mysteries, rented the estate for a month, hoping to uncover the truth behind the disappearances. She arrived on a foggy afternoon, the mansion's dark silhouette looming against the gray sky. The first week was uneventful, but Sarah felt a growing sense of unease. At night, she heard footsteps in the empty halls and doors creaking open on their own. One evening, while researching in the library, she came across an old journal belonging to Eliza Campbell, the last known resident of Ravenwood. The entries detailed strange occurrences, shadows that moved on their own, disembodied voices, and a sinister presence that haunted the family. The final entry was dated the night the Campbells disappeared. It spoke of a hidden room beneath the house, accessible through a secret passage in the library. Determined to find the room, Sarah searched the library, eventually discovering a loose brick in the wall. Behind it was a lever, which, when pulled, revealed a narrow staircase descending into darkness. With a flashlight in hand, she ventured down. The air grew thick with the scent of decay as she reached the bottom. The room was filled with old, dusty furniture and strange symbols painted on the walls. In the center was a large, ornate mirror. Sarah felt drawn to it, unable to look away as she stood before the mirror. Her reflection began to change. Her eyes turned black, her face twisted into a malevolent grin. She tried to step back, but her feet were rooted to the spot. The mirror's surface rippled, and a shadowy figure emerged, its cold hands reaching for her throat. As Mike, Lisa, and Tom walked away from Hawthorne House, a profound sense of peace settled over them. They knew they had confronted the malevolent entity that had plagued the mansion for generations, and they had succeeded in restoring peace to the once accursed grounds. In the following years, Hawthorne House flourished under the care of the townspeople. It became a place of community gatherings, cultural events, and historical tours, drawing visitors from far and wide. The mansion's gardens bloomed with vibrant colors, and its halls echoed with laughter and stories of bravery. Mike, Lisa, and Tom remained humble heroes in the eyes of the town, their bonds strengthened by their shared experiences. They knew that Hawthorne House would never be completely free of its troubled past, but they took comfort in knowing that they had played a part in its redemption. And as they stood together, watching the sunset cast a warm glow over Hawthorne House, they knew that its legacy would endure, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of courage in the face of darkness. With that, their journey came to an end, but their memories of Hawthorne House and the bonds forged within its walls would remain with them forever.